what qualities do you attribute to an object that is worth honoring?
So I suppose there must be a resonance. So there must be something in the object or person that has some kind of vibrational match to me.
Honor is a quality describing a person whose behavior is consistently in alignment with a code of principles, which can be personal or communally agreed. Often, an honorable person is described as principled, ethical, decent, respectable, moral, and honest, and they're known to keep their word, to be reliable and of good faith. They take these aspects of personality to be important and win the respect and love of their circle through their nobility of character.
In my experience, it is sacred giving and sacred receiving. And so as I was contemplating it, I began to see it as a loop, almost like a breath. I see most things like breath. It's what I do. But it's almost like a breath of sacred relationship, I suppose.
There is an aspect of honor which I think we do need to acknowledge, and that is it's a social contract. The relationship between the individual and the community, which the individual relates to, that relationship is defined by honor, a mutual processing of honor. It requires the community to be just. There has to be a system of justice and protection from harm from the one side, but the individual has to do the right thing, basically, usually measured by morality and law.
In a very tangible way, honor represents a form of social contract between the community and the individual, and frequently defines that which is held to be legal, morally acceptable, and even sacred. Failure to attend to such matters brings censure and often penalty, strongly laced with shame, embarrassment, or guilt. A person of honor will always try to do the right thing, no matter what the cost, and measure as successful a life lived by always showing profound respect for every living being. Such a path shows in their noble bearing as grace and beauty, and this atmosphere is the true meaning of aristocracy.
And what I've been working on with myself is being able to honor myself more, to start with. You can't honor something on the outside if you don't honor yourself.
And what does that mean for you?
And that means identifying your principles and abiding to them. My definition is not better than yours, it's just my definition.
I think we may struggle to find the words to describe and define honor. Personally, I don't think there are multiple versions of honor. There is one absolute quality that is the same for everyone.
What's the difference that makes the difference? What is honor to you?
Integrity and reliability.
Reliability in what sense?
Doing what I say I will do.
Keeping your word.
Keeping my word, yeah.
Is that a description or a definition? So it's a necessary condition, but not a sufficient condition.
Correct.
So a necessary condition is keeping your word. What makes it sufficient? What makes it honorable?
Always doing the right thing.
By whose standards?
Those of the society in which I...
Obedience to society is honor then, is it?
No.
So by whose?
Obedience to my own morality, my own values.
And what if your own values allows you to rob banks and kill people?
That's okay.
So an honorable person could be a murderer, rapist, that kind of person, as long as they feel in good conscience.
Yeah.
Either it's look, it's either subjective or it's objective. You're not going to get anybody to agree with you that a murdering bastard thief is an honorable man. So is it subjective or objective? What is honor? Is it a personally defined set of criteria or not?
Anna, what is your definition of honor?
Actually, it's a principle. You have to learn how to identify things that do deserve being honored in your life. It is an extension, a recognition of value, a recognition that something is important to an extent that not only being valued, it belongs to a higher group of things or of elements in your life, something that really you give and you receive something back. So because you are able to honor something, there is something so special in your life that deserves the highest degree of your attention, consideration, appreciation, and you make note of it. You make it aware, not just to yourself and to the world, that this is what I honor. I honor this value, this flag, this person, this deity, whatever it works for you. It doesn't matter. When we think of honor, we think of a hero, right? Someone doing outstanding feats, behaving in the most amazing way. How can we be heroes in our own pragmatic life, everyday life?
I don't feel that. I don't think honor and heroism are associated with each other. I associate heroism with a reckless courage, and honor is far from reckless. It's a very calm, decided, consistent way of life. This is what I do in this situation, and however difficult it is, nevertheless I'm going to do it. Oh, look, there's a temptation for my passion. No, I'm not the person that does that. It's not the energy of a hero, not in my mind. I'm not to say they're mutually exclusive. That's not what I'm saying. They're just irrelevant to each other.
Okay. So are there better things to honor than others? Or are we all on the same level of honor, even though we honor different things?
Well, no, we're not on the same level at all. Very few people are truly honorable. To be honorable, you need to make up your mind about what principles you're living by, to have a code and to stay with that code. And very few people do that. The difference is between expediency and principle. Most people say they live by certain principles, which they do, until it's expedient to change their position for the moment. This is because it's inconvenient, or it's hard work, or it takes more courage than they've got, or it will cost them money, or it will cost them time. All the many reasons why people do what's expedient. They take the course of least resistance when it becomes too tough. But the people of principle, they do the right thing, come what may, at whatever price, even, and this ties in now with the hero, even if it involves loss of life. There has to be some determination of the community standards.
Yeah.
And yet our interpretation of them will always be subjective. Is there some Platonic, Aristotelian kind of thing about doing no one, or Hippocratic oath of doing no one harm?
Doing no harm.
And, you know, that kind of thing. Either honor is actually a human quality that we're aspiring to, an ideal,
yeah,
or a sense of alignment with one's own integrity.
I think it has to be an ideal quality. That's what it is for me. I think there is a journey that's indicated by the 5 Sabian symbols that suggests a development, a progression from perhaps personal honor, which is Aries 11, the president of the country, the power of self-discipline, which is what we were talking about earlier, to then, when we've not necessarily mastered that, but certainly experienced it, we can turn it outwards and start expressing soul freedom, the flock of wild geese, Aries 12, and so on. up to the point of Aries 15, an Indian weaving a blanket, where we get to cosmic consciousness, and one might even say cosmic honor.
I think what I think of as honor is probably is not going to, it's not something that we can have as a set of behaviors, I don't think. The theory, and I like your word of nurturing, I liked my word of trust, that I think those two qualities have to be there in any kind of honoring, but I recognize that things I don't see as acceptable behavior may still contain, may still have the honor within them. Maybe this is intuitive honor. You know, how do you recognize in someone else a corresponding honor to yours? And I think it is really, I think the word you use there's where I would go with it, that it's subtle. Because even if I gave you a list of things that I considered honorable, there would be, the essence of a person isn't a list of behaviors.
What form can this take? What is it, honoring yourself, or what practices do you think fit that role of honoring yourself?
The first thing for me is always self-understanding. So until you know what you hold sacred, you can't honor it, or rather you can only honor it to the level or to the extent of which you know yourself and you know what you hold sacred.
That there are people who are obsessive about following their religion and they behave religiously. It's actually described as such. When they're following someone else's idea about what is the right thing, they're obeying the 10 commandments or whatever. That's not what I would consider honor. You might well take on somebody else's package of morality and legality and sacredness. That may well be what you take on, but it's because you've actually checked it out and find that it sits well with you. Until you do that, then it's not honor, it's obedience to religious principles or legal principles or ethical principles. You're obedient to something, but if you don't actually agree with it, because you haven't been bothered to think about a life without it, if you haven't done that, then I don't see how you can claim to be honorable.
In the Sabian mysteries, the challenge is that how can you bring to our everyday lives these principles that they are so bigger, so much wider than us? How can you not surrender to your lower self and enter in this action-reaction dynamic? So if someone does me harm, I will respond with harm. If someone does me harm, I will be the bigger person and I will do nothing. But this becomes part of your identity, and I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to just let it flow, let it be. So it is a matter of the set of principles that you follow. Yeah. So how can we find principles that are worth being honored?
Well, you borrow them from some other person or some other system, and you check out to see whether living according to those principles works for you. And if they don't, then you chuck out the ones that don't work and replace them with those that do work for you. That's the process. And by working, I mean, let's go out on a limb here and I say avoiding embarrassment, avoiding shame, avoiding pricks of conscience. There's a feeling that we got where like, oh dear, I've done the wrong thing. And it's shame or embarrassment or guilt or something like that. And if you live a life without that, that's a clue. There are people that have none of those things because they're the other end of the scale. I'm not talking about them. They're called psychopaths. But those of us who are actually trying to do the right thing, and we do it consistently well, that we just don't have any embarrassment or shame, then that's a clue.
So there is a path for becoming honorable, right?
For everyone, yeah. Anyone at any spiritual level can behave honorably. And in fact, I would say that that probably is a very good measure of your spiritual level. If you're an honorable person, then on some level, I would have to say that's a spiritual statement about you. I think my grandfather was honorable. He just always did the right thing, you know, told the truth, never cheated, those kind of things. So first of all, your parents tell you what to do to be a good boy or a good girl, and then you grow up to realize, well, they don't. They've been telling me lies, typically, you know, or they'll send you to Sunday school and the school teacher will tell you how to be, and it just won't sit well with you. And you realize that you've been instructed in morality, which is to do with honor, by people who are not living according to those principles. And you have to deal with the dismay of waking up to believe that, to understand that there's no Santa Claus. You know, you have to go through that, and then you become rebellious against the system that tells lies about doing the right thing. And that's what you're supposed to do when you're about 18 or 21. You have to be rebellious. And then you become a parent yourself at some point, and you have to try and guide your children to be aware of the difference between right and wrong. It's all about teaching people the consequences of not doing the right thing. And I think it's taught very badly indeed. It's taught by people waving a Bible at you, or a policeman's truncheon, or some penalty that you pay. It's missing the point entirely. To live in honor, to honor yourself, honor everyone else, to respect every living being, gives you this feeling of freedom from doubt, freedom from embarrassment or shame or guilt. You feel right. You feel in the sort of the mood of the moment, and holding a position of centeredness and well-being. There isn't any need to threaten people with punishment, because the reward of feeling honorable is its own reward.
So what I honored about myself 10 years ago is possibly different. I haven't kind of spent a lot of time analyzing this, but I know I was a different person 10 years ago to the person I am now. So I suspect that what I honored then will be different to what I honor now. But equally, I think there are some things that are just innate. And those things, I think, have been unchanged probably since I was a child.
I think there's a difference between somebody who does something right in the moment in a particular situation, and somebody who consistently does the right thing.
So there is, after all, still honorable people amongst us.
I would say that I have a handful of friends that I know to be honorable. Out of 1,000 people I've met a very small number who I consider honorable at a level which is impeccable. You know, people that would just never do the wrong thing. They just never would, because it's more important to them than life itself. That pay any price not to break their code, because being able to live by a code is evidence of such grace and beauty, and also power. And the people that understand honor value those things more than life.
It's either honor or not behaving.
Well, principle or expediency. You know, expediency is doing whatever you can to get what you want. Principle is doing the right thing, even at personal cost. That's basically it, isn't it?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
So I try and live by principles. I've described some of my principles before, and that's what I'm trying to do, is to say, well, look, these are my principles. These are the things that I do, and they work for me, and that's what my videos and writings are all about. Just telling people what works for me, and any teacher who's trying to do that would no longer be an influential teacher if they were found out not to be consistent with their teachings, would they? You know, you have to walk your talk. And I think that's the thing about honor. You walk your talk and you keep your word as well. I've severed my relationships with very close friends because they broke their word to me. Once, I require my best friends to keep their word. And I don't mind if I'm alone rather than have to put up with people that are dishonorable. But I'm not. There are enough people for me to play with.